The silence in the Sterling dining room stretched like a surgical incision, clean, precise, and bleeding. Harold Sterling's coffee cup met the marble table with a sound that might as well have been a gavel. At 62, he had perfected the art of intimidation, and this December morning, every line of his posture screamed authority. "Christmas Eve," he said, not looking up from his newspaper. "That's when you'll announce the engagement." Dr. Ethan Sterling's hand stilled on his medical journal. 3 years of cardiac surgery, countless lives saved, and he still felt 12 years old in this room. "I never agreed to marry Scarlett. You never agreed to a lot of things that happened anyway." Harold's smile was winter sharp. "Medical school, specializing in cardiology, following in the family tradition. Those were my choices." "Were they?" Harold finally looked up, and Ethan saw his own gray eyes reflected back, cold, calculating, empty of warmth. "Or were they the logical steps for someone who wanted to inherit Sterling Medical Group?" The words hung between them like a challenge. Ethan had heard this threat building for months, but hearing it spoken aloud felt like a punch to the solar plexus. "I built this empire with my bare hands," Harold continued, his voice dropping to that deadly quiet tone. "Every hospital, every clinic, every dollar. And I'll be damned if I leave it to someone who can't make the right decisions about his personal life. Scarlett Blackwood is not the right decision. Scarlett Blackwood is from our world. She understands power, influence, the sacrifices required to maintain what we've built." Harold leaned back in his chair. "Unlike whatever waitress you might pick up in some misguided rebellion. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that Ethan's eventual choice would be some random act of defiance rather than love, made something snap inside him. "Maybe I will marry a waitress," Ethan said quietly. Harold's laugh was like glass breaking. "Please do. I'll enjoy watching you try to survive without the Sterling name behind you." The bell above Murphy's diner door chimed like a death knell as Ethan pushed inside. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a harsh, unforgiving glow. He'd been driving for 2 hours, his father's ultimatum echoing in his head like a migraine. "Sit anywhere you'd like, honey." The voice belonged to a young woman behind the counter, mid-20s maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that had seen better days. Her name tag read Cassie, and when she looked up, her brown eyes held the kind of exhaustion that went bone deep. Ethan chose a booth in the corner, as far from the other customers as possible. He needed to think, needed to figure out how to escape the trap his father had laid for him. But when the waitress approached with a coffee pot, his grand plans scattered like smoke. "Coffee? Please." She poured without spilling a drop, despite hands that trembled slightly. "Long night?" "Long life." The words came out more bitter than he'd intended, and something flickered in her expression. Not pity, but recognition. As if she understood what it meant to feel trapped by circumstances beyond your control. "You want some pie with that? Apple's day old, but the cherry's fresh. I'm not really hungry. Neither am I most days. But sometimes you eat anyway." She set the coffee pot down on his table. "Because giving up isn't really an option." Ethan looked up at her then, really looked. Tired eyes, yes, but intelligent. A chin that lifted with pride despite the weariness. Hands that were clean but showed the signs of hard work. Small cuts, a burn mark near her wrist. "What's your story?" he asked. "My story?" Cassie's laugh held no humor. "You sure you want to hear that? It's not exactly dinner conversation. Try me." She glanced around the diner, checking that her other customers were settled, then slid into the booth across from him. The vinyl squeaked under her weight. "3 jobs," she said simply. "This place mornings and weekends, office cleaning at night, and stocking shelves at the grocery when they need extra help. My brother Tommy's 16 and thinks he knows everything. Our parents died when he was 8, car accident. I've been raising him ever since. That's a lot of responsibility. It's what family does." Her voice carried the weight of someone who'd learned adult lessons too young. You take care of the people you love no matter what it costs you. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. When was the last time someone had talked to him about love without calculating what they could gain from it? What about you? Cassie asked. What's your long life story? I'm a doctor. Cardiac surgery. He paused, unsure how much to reveal. My father wants me to marry someone I don't love. Arranged marriage? What century is this? The 21st century version. Social expectations, family obligations, business mergers disguised as romance. Cassie studied his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. And you're going to do it? Marry her? I don't know. That's not much of an answer. It's the only one I have. They sat in silence for a moment, two strangers sharing the kind of honesty that usually required years of friendship. You know what I think, Cassie said finally. What? I think you should do something that would make your father lose his mind. Something so completely unexpected that he'd have no choice but to accept that you're your own person. Like what? Like marry someone he'd never approve of. The words hung between them like a dare. Ethan felt his heart start to race, not with fear, but with possibility. Someone like you? He heard himself ask. Cassie went very still. What did you just say? Someone like you, Ethan repeated, the idea taking shape even as he spoke. Someone from a different world entirely. Someone who would make him realize he doesn't control every aspect of my life. That's crazy. Is it? Ethan leaned forward. What if I offered you something? What if I could solve your problems and you could solve mine? I don't even know your name. Ethan. Dr. Ethan Sterling. Sterling. Recognition flickered in her eyes. As in Sterling Medical Group? My father owns it, for now. Cassie pushed back from the table. This is insane. You don't know anything about me. I know you work 3 jobs to take care of your brother. I know you're tired, but you keep going anyway. I know you understand what it means to sacrifice for family. Ethan's voice grew urgent. I know you're exactly the kind of person who would drive my father insane. And that's your selling point? That I'd make a good rebellion? No. The word came out sharper than he intended. That's not what I meant. But wasn't it? Ethan felt shame crawl up his throat as he realized how his proposition sounded. Cassie stood up, grabbing the coffee pot. Thanks for the conversation, Dr. Sterling, but I'm not interested in being anyone's act of defiance. She was halfway across the diner before Ethan found his voice again. Wait. He stood up, not caring that other customers were staring. I said that wrong. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. Cassie didn't turn around. I know exactly what you meant. Ethan waited. He sat in his BMW outside Murphy's diner for 3 hours, watching the lunch rush come and go until Cassie's shift ended at 4 p.m. When she emerged, still wearing her uniform and looking like she was ready to drop from exhaustion, he intercepted her path to the bus stop. We need to talk. No, we don't. She tried to step around him, but he blocked her way, not aggressively. Just persistently. 5 minutes, please. I have to get to my second job. I'll drive you, after we talk. Something in his voice must have reached her, because she stopped trying to push past him. Fine. 5 minutes. They sat on the bench at the bus stop, the afternoon sun casting long shadows between them. I handled that badly in there, Ethan began. You think? I made it sound like you'd be some kind of prop in my family drama. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Ethan ran his hands through his hair, searching for words that wouldn't sound condescending or cruel. My father has controlled every major decision in my life since I was born. Where I went to school, what I studied, which residency program I entered, and now he wants to control who I marry. So rebel. Date whoever you want. It's not that simple. If I don't marry Scarlett Blackwood by Christmas Eve, he's threatening to disinherit me. So you lose your trust fund. Big deal. It's not about money. The words came out frustrated. It's about the hospitals, the clinics, all the patients who depend on Sterling Medical Group. If my father's successor is some corporate board instead of someone who actually cares about medicine. You'd sacrifice your happiness for that. Wouldn't you sacrifice yours for Tommy? The question hit its mark. Cassie's expression softened slightly. That's different, is it? We're both trapped by circumstances we didn't choose, both willing to give up what we want for the people who depend on us. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership. Marriage in name only, just long enough to prove to my father that he can't control me. I pay off whatever debts you have, set up college funds for Tommy, make sure you never have to work 3 jobs again. After a year, quiet divorce, generous settlement, you get financial security, I get my independence. Cassie was quiet for a long time, staring at the cracked sidewalk beneath their feet. Why me? She asked finally. You could find someone else to play this role. Because when you talked about taking care of Tommy, your whole face changed. Because you understand what it means to put someone else's needs above your own. Ethan paused. Because when you looked at me, you didn't see dollar signs or social status. You just saw someone who was tired of being controlled. This is insane. Completely insane, Ethan agreed. But sometimes insane is the only way to stay sane. Cassie looked at him then, really looked at him, and Ethan felt something pass between them. Not attraction exactly, but understanding. Recognition of shared desperation. What would this marriage look like? Separate bedrooms, separate lives mostly. A few public appearances to sell the story. You'd move into my penthouse, at least temporarily. Tommy could transfer to better schools if he wanted. And after a year? You'd disappear with enough money to never worry about working 3 jobs again. I run Sterling Medical Group and eventually marry someone I actually choose. Someone appropriate. Someone real. The bus wheezed to a stop in front of them, its doors opening with a hydraulic sigh. I have to think about this, Cassie said, standing. Of course. Take all the time you need. She started toward the bus, then turned back. What's she like? Scarlet? Beautiful, wealthy. Cold as winter. And she loves you? Ethan considered the question seriously. She loves what I represent. The Sterling name, the social status, the financial security. I don't think she's ever seen me as anything more than a very expensive accessory. That's sad. What's sad is that until I met you, I thought that was normal. Cassie said yes 3 days later, her voice steady, despite the way her hands shook as she signed the prenuptial agreement. The ceremony took place at City Hall on a Thursday morning, with 2 strangers serving as witnesses and a judge who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Do you, Ethan Sterling, take Cassie Morrow to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Cassie Morrow, take Ethan Sterling to be your lawfully wedded husband? A pause that lasted forever. I do. The rings were simple gold bands bought from a jewelry store 10 minutes before the ceremony. When Ethan slipped the ring onto Cassie's finger, her hand was ice cold. You may kiss the bride. Their first kiss was awkward, hesitant, 2 actors who hadn't rehearsed the scene. But when their lips touched, something unexpected happened. For just a moment, the pretense fell away, and they were simply 2 people who had chosen to save each other. Congratulations, the judge said, his voice bored. You're married. They drove to Ethan's penthouse in silence, the weight of what they'd done settling between them like fog. The apartment was everything Cassie had expected. Glass and steel, expensive furniture, the kind of sterile perfection that belonged in magazines rather than real life. Your room is down the hall, Ethan said, setting her single suitcase in the guest bedroom. There's a private bathroom, and you can redecorate however you want. Thank you. Cassie. He paused in the doorway. Are you okay? I just married a complete stranger to help him spite his father. I'm questioning my sanity, but I'm okay. For what it's worth, You're not completely a stranger anymore, aren't I? Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, standing in the middle of his expensive guest room in her thrift store dress, clutching a suitcase that had seen better years. I don't know, he said honestly. I guess we'll find out. The first dinner with his parents was scheduled for Saturday night, 2 days after the wedding. Cassie had never been more nervous in her life. What do I need to know? She asked, smoothing down the simple black dress Ethan had bought her, the first new dress she'd owned in 3 years. My mother will try to make you feel inferior. She has a talent for backhanded compliments and pointed questions about your background. And your father? My father will try to figure out what you want from me so he can use it against both of us. Lovely family. They weren't always like this, or maybe they were, and I just never noticed because I was part of it. The Sterling mansion sat on 5 acres of perfectly manicured grounds, all brick and ivy and old money. Cassie felt like an imposter walking up the marble steps. Ready? Ethan asked, his hand settling at the small of her back. No. Good. Neither am I. Harold Sterling opened the door himself, his cold gray eyes taking inventory of Cassie from head to toe. So, this is the girl who stole my son. I'm Cassie, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for having me in your home. Harold's handshake was brief and dismissive. Catherine will want to meet you, of course. She's in the drawing room. Catherine Sterling was elegant in the way that only came from generations of wealth. Perfectly styled silver hair, understated jewelry, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Cassie, dear, she said, air-kissing both cheeks. What a surprise this has all been. I imagine so. Please sit down. Tell us about yourself. Where did you go to school? I didn't finish high school, Cassie said, deciding honesty was better than trying to bluff her way through dinner. I had to drop out to work when my parents died. The silence that followed was deafening. How tragic, Catherine said finally, her voice dripping false sympathy. And what sort of work do you do? I'm a waitress. I also clean offices and stock shelves. 3 jobs, Harold observed. How industrious. Someone has to pay the bills. And now someone else will, Catherine said, her meaning clear. How convenient for you. Ethan's jaw tightened. Mother. It's okay, Cassie said quietly. She looked directly at Catherine, her chin lifting with quiet dignity. Yes, Mrs. Sterling, I'm poor. Yes, I work 3 jobs to survive. Yes, I married your son knowing it would change my financial situation. But I didn't marry him for his money. Then why did you marry him? Harold asked, leaning forward like a lawyer cross-examining a witness. Cassie glanced at Ethan, something passing between them in that look. Because he saw me, she said simply. Not what I could give him or what I represented. Just me. How romantic, Harold said dryly. It is, Ethan said, his voice firm. More romantic than anything I've ever experienced with someone from our world. The barb hit its target. Catherine's smile grew sharper. Well, she said, I suppose we'll all have to adjust to this new arrangement. Dinner was served in the formal dining room, 7 courses on china that probably cost more than Cassie made in a month. The conversation was stilted, full of loaded questions and uncomfortable silences. And what are your plans now? Catherine asked over dessert. Will you be continuing with your work? I'm going to finish my education, Cassie said. Get my GED, maybe take some college classes. How ambitious, Harold said. And expensive. Knowledge usually is. Indeed. Of course, Ethan's resources are somewhat tied up in family obligations. I hope you understand. The threat was subtle but clear. Behave, or the money disappears. I understand perfectly, Cassie replied. I also understand that some things are more valuable than money. Such as self-respect, integrity, the freedom to choose your own path instead of having it chosen for you. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Harold's eyes narrowed. Interesting philosophy from someone who just married into wealth. I didn't marry into wealth, Mr. Sterling. I married your son. There's a difference. On the drive home, Ethan was quiet for a long time. I'm sorry about that, he said finally. They were worse than usual. They're scared. Scared? Of losing control of you. Of you choosing something they didn't plan. Cassie looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. I feel sorry for them, actually. Sorry for them. They've never experienced anything real. Everything in their world is calculated, arranged, designed to maintain status. They don't know what it feels like to love someone enough to risk everything for them. Is that what you think we're doing? Risking everything? Aren't we? Ethan considered this as he pulled into his building's garage. I suppose we are. Living with Ethan Sterling was nothing like Cassie had imagined. She'd expected awkwardness, formality, the constant awareness that she was playing a role in someone else's life. Instead, she found something unexpected: companionship. They developed routines without discussing them. Ethan left for the hospital before dawn, but he always made coffee for both of them, leaving hers in a travel mug with a note about the day's weather. Cassie, who had never lived anywhere that stayed warm without constant vigilance, began leaving lights on throughout the apartment so Ethan wouldn't come home to darkness. You don't have to cook, he told her one evening, finding her in the kitchen preparing dinner. I know. I like cooking. When's the last time someone cooked for you? The question caught her off guard. I don't remember. Then let me help. Watching Dr. Ethan Sterling attempt to chop vegetables was simultaneously endearing and terrifying. His surgical precision didn't translate to kitchen skills. Not like that, Cassie said, moving to stand behind him, her hands covering his on the knife. Like this. Let the blade do the work. She was close enough to smell his cologne, to feel the warmth radiating from his body. When he turned his head to ask a question, their faces were inches apart. Am I doing it right? He asked softly. Perfect, she whispered. They stayed like that for a moment too long, her hands still covering his, before Cassie stepped back with burning cheeks. I should check on the sauce, she mumbled. These moments of unexpected intimacy became more frequent. Ethan helping her reach something from a high shelf, his hands lingering at her waist. Cassie falling asleep on the couch during a movie, waking up covered with Ethan's jacket. Brief touches, shared glances, the kind of casual domestic interactions that felt far too real for their arrangement. Tell me about Tommy, Ethan said one evening as they cleaned up after dinner. What do you want to know? Everything. What he's like, what he wants to be when he grows up, what makes him laugh. So Cassie told him. About Tommy's obsession with marine biology, his plans to study oceanography, his teenage conviction that he could save the world's coral reefs single-handedly. About how he'd grown 3 inches in the past year and ate everything in sight. About the way he still sometimes crawled into her bed during thunderstorms, even though he was 16 and too proud to admit he was scared. He sounds incredible, Ethan said. He is. He's the best thing I've ever done with my life. You raised him. I tried to. Some days I felt like I was just surviving, you know? Like I was one crisis away from completely falling apart. But you didn't fall apart. No, I didn't. Cassie dried the last plate, setting it carefully in the cabinet. What about you? Any siblings? No. My parents decided one heir was sufficient. That sounds lonely. I didn't think it was until I met you and Tommy. Now I wonder what I missed. The honesty in his voice made Cassie's chest tight. It's not too late. You could still have a family someday. A real one. Could I? Something in his tone made her look up. Ethan was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. After the divorce, she said quickly, when you find someone you actually love. Right. After the divorce. But neither of them moved to end the conversation, to retreat to their separate bedrooms. They stood in his pristine kitchen, the weight of unspoken possibilities hanging between them like a bridge neither was brave enough to cross. 3 months into their marriage, Cassie felt herself drowning in feelings she had no right to have. Every smile Ethan gave her, every casual touch, every moment of genuine laughter over shared meals was torture. She was falling in love with her fake husband, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The realization hit her fully one Tuesday morning when she woke up to find a note on her coffee mug. Emergency surgery ran long. Didn't want to wake you. Hope your day is beautiful. E. She stood in his immaculate kitchen, holding a piece of paper that meant nothing and everything, and felt her heart crack open. This was what love felt like. Not the desperate need she'd felt for the men who'd used her before, but something warm and steady and impossible. She was still staring at the note when the doorman called up. "Mrs. Sterling, there's a Ms. Blackwood here to see you." Cassie's blood went cold. "Send her up." Scarlett Blackwood was everything Cassie wasn't. Tall, blonde, elegant in that effortless way that only came from a lifetime of privilege. She swept into the apartment like she owned it, her expensive heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "So you're the little waitress who stole my fiancé," she said without preamble. "I'm Cassie, and Ethan was never your fiancé." "Wasn't he?" Scarlett settled onto the white leather couch like a queen claiming her throne. "We had an understanding. Our families had an arrangement. The only reason we weren't officially engaged was timing." "Well, the timing worked out differently than you expected." Scarlett laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Did you really think this would last? That someone like Ethan would stay married to someone like you? Someone like me? Poor, uneducated, desperate." Scarlett's blue eyes were cruel as winter. "Honey, you're a phase, a rebellion. The kind of mistake rich boys make when they want to feel dangerous." Each word hit like a physical blow because they echoed every fear Cassie had been trying to suppress. "Ethan loves me," she said weakly. "Ethan feels sorry for you. There's a difference." Scarlett stood, moving to examine the family photos on the mantel, pictures that had been there long before Cassie arrived. "Look around you, sweetheart. This is his world. Do you really think you belong in it?" "I think belonging is about more than money." How naive. Belonging is about understanding the rules, knowing how to navigate society, having something to contribute beyond a sad story and good intentions. Scarlett turned back to Cassie. "What do you bring to this marriage besides your tragic background?" The question hung in the air like poison. What did she bring? She couldn't network with his colleagues, couldn't host the kind of parties that advanced careers, couldn't move in the social circles that mattered for someone in Ethan's position. "I make him happy," Cassie said finally. "For now. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When he realizes that love isn't enough to bridge the gap between your worlds?" Scarlett moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "When he starts to resent the career opportunities you've cost him, the social connections he's lost, the reputation damage from marrying so far beneath his station. You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? Let me tell you what I know. I know that Ethan's been turned down for 3 major positions in the past 2 months because of questions about his judgment. I know that his colleagues whisper about his charity case wife behind his back. I know that his parents are quietly working to find ways to separate him from you." The words hit like hammer blows. "That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time he took you to a hospital function? When's the last time he introduced you to his colleagues as anything more than my wife? Face it, darling, he's already ashamed of you. He just doesn't know it yet." Scarlett moved toward the door, her message delivered with surgical precision. "I'm not telling you this to be cruel," she said, her voice softening with false sympathy. "I'm telling you this because someone needs to be honest with you. Ethan is going to break your heart." The only question is whether you're going to let him destroy your dignity too. After she left, Cassie sank onto the couch, Scarlett's words echoing in her head. She looked around the apartment with new eyes, at the expensive furniture she was afraid to sit on, the art she didn't understand, the life she was pretending to live. What did she bring to this marriage besides her tragic background? The question haunted her for the rest of the day. When Ethan came home that evening, exhausted from surgery, she watched him move through their shared space and wondered if Scarlett was right. Was she holding him back? Was their marriage costing him opportunities she didn't even know about? "How was your day?" he asked, kissing her cheek in the casual way that had developed between them. "Fine," she lied. "How was yours?" "Long, but better now that I'm home." Home. The word used to warm her. Now it felt like another weight around her neck. 3 months into their marriage, Cassie felt herself drowning in feelings she had no right to have. Every smile Ethan gave her, every casual touch, every moment of genuine laughter over shared meals, was torture. She was falling in love with her fake husband, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The realization hit her fully one Tuesday morning when she woke up to find a note on her coffee mug. "Emergency surgery ran long. Didn't want to wake you. Hope your day is beautiful. E." She stood in his immaculate kitchen, holding a piece of paper that meant nothing and everything, and felt her heart crack open. This was what love felt like. Not the desperate need she'd felt for the men who'd used her before, but something warm and steady and impossible. She was still staring at the note when the doorman called up. "Mrs. Sterling, there's a Ms. Blackwood here to see you." Cassie's blood went cold. "Send her up." Scarlett Blackwood was everything Cassie wasn't. Tall, blonde, elegant in that effortless way that only came from a lifetime of privilege. She swept into the apartment like she owned it, her expensive heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "So you're the little waitress who stole my fiancé," she said without preamble. "I'm Cassie, and Ethan was never your fiancé." "Wasn't he?" Scarlett settled onto the white leather couch like a queen claiming her throne. "We had an understanding. Our families had an arrangement. The only reason we weren't officially engaged was timing." "Well, the timing worked out differently than you expected." Scarlett laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Did you really think this would last? That someone like Ethan would stay married to someone like you? Someone like me? Poor, uneducated, desperate." Scarlett's blue eyes were cruel as winter. "Honey, you're a phase, a rebellion. The kind of mistake rich boys make when they want to feel dangerous." Each word hit like a physical blow because they echoed every fear Cassie had been trying to suppress. "Ethan loves me," she said weakly. "Ethan feels sorry for you. There's a difference." Scarlett stood, moving to examine the family photos on the mantel, pictures that had been there long before Cassie arrived. "Look around you, sweetheart. This is his world. Do you really think you belong in it?" "I think belonging is about more than money." How naive. Belonging is about understanding the rules, knowing how to navigate society, having something to contribute beyond a sad story and good intentions. Scarlett turned back to Cassie. "What do you bring to this marriage besides your tragic background?" The question hung in the air like poison. What did she bring? She couldn't network with his colleagues, couldn't host the kind of parties that advanced careers, couldn't move in the social circles that mattered for someone in Ethan's position. "I make him happy," Cassie said finally. "For now. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When he realizes that love isn't enough to bridge the gap between your worlds?" Scarlett moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "When he starts to resent the career opportunities you've cost him, the social connections he's lost, the reputation damage from marrying so far beneath his station. You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? Let me tell you what I know. I know that Ethan's been turned down for 3 major positions in the past 2 months because of questions about his judgment. I know that his colleagues whisper about his charity case wife behind his back. I know that his parents are quietly working to find ways to separate him from you. The words hit like hammer blows. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time he took you to a hospital function? When's the last time he introduced you to his colleagues as anything more than my wife? Face it, darling, he's already ashamed of you. He just doesn't know it yet. Scarlett moved toward the door, her message delivered with surgical precision. I'm not telling you this to be cruel, she said, her voice softening with false sympathy. I'm telling you this because someone needs to be honest with you. Ethan is going to break your heart. The only question is whether you're going to let him destroy your dignity too. After she left, Cassie sank onto the couch, Scarlett's words echoing in her head. She looked around the apartment with new eyes, at the expensive furniture she was afraid to sit on, the art she didn't understand, the life she was pretending to live. What did she bring to this marriage besides her tragic background? The question haunted her for the rest of the day. When Ethan came home that evening, exhausted from surgery, she watched him move through their shared space and wondered if Scarlett was right. Was she holding him back? Was their marriage costing him opportunities she didn't even know about? How was your day? He asked, kissing her cheek in the casual way that had developed between them. Fine, she lied. How was yours? Long, but better now that I'm home. Home. The word used to warm her. Now it felt like another weight around her neck. Cassie was gone when Ethan woke up the next morning. Her clothes, her few personal belongings, even the coffee mug she'd claimed as her own, all of it vanished like she'd never been there at all. The only evidence of her presence was a letter on the kitchen counter, written in her careful handwriting. Ethan, by the time you read this, I'll be back in my old apartment. I've spoken to a lawyer about expediting our divorce. You don't need to worry about the settlement. I don't want anything from you except the knowledge that I'm freeing you to have the life you deserve. Thank you for 3 months of feeling like I mattered to someone. Thank you for showing me what kindness looks like, what it feels like to be cared for. Thank you for helping Tommy, and for treating me like I was worth something. But most of all, thank you for letting me go, before I could do any more damage to your future. I hope you find someone who can love you the way you deserve to be loved, someone who can be the partner you need for the life you're meant to live. Take care of yourself. Cassie. Ethan read the letter 3 times before the words fully penetrated. She was gone, really gone, and she thought she was doing him a favor. For 2 weeks he threw himself into work with manic intensity, 18-hour days, back-to-back surgeries, anything to avoid going home to an apartment that felt like a mausoleum. His colleagues noticed his distraction, his short temper, the way he snapped at nurses who moved too slowly or asked too many questions. You look like hell, his friend Dr. Marcus Webb told him after a particularly brutal day in the OR. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? Or ate something that wasn't from a vending machine? I'm fine. You're falling apart. Marcus leaned against the wall. Everyone's talking about it. Whatever's going on with you and your wife, there is no me and my wife. She left. Because of the gossip? Because some people couldn't mind their own business? Because she realized she didn't belong in my world. Ethan's voice was flat, empty. Because she was smart enough to see what I refused to acknowledge. Which is that marrying her was selfish, that I was holding her back from a life where she could be happy without constantly being judged and found wanting. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Apparently you're going to regardless. Were you happy? With her? The question hit like a surgical incision, precise, necessary, and painful. Yes, Ethan admitted quietly. Happier than I've ever been in my life. And was she happy? I thought so, until she realized what being married to me was costing her. What was it costing her? Her dignity, her sense of self-worth, her peace of mind. Ethan pushed back from the nurse's station where they'd been talking. She's better off without me. Are you better off without her? The question followed Ethan home to his empty apartment, where the silence felt oppressive and the perfectly arranged furniture mocked him with its sterile beauty. He found himself looking for signs of Cassie's presence, the book she'd left on the coffee table, the flowers she'd bought to brighten the kitchen, the warmth that had somehow transformed his showcase apartment into a home. All of it was gone, erased as completely as if she'd never existed. 3 weeks after Cassie left, Harold Sterling appeared at Ethan's office unannounced. "Well," he said, settling into the chair across from Ethan's desk, "I hear congratulations are in order. Your little rebellion appears to be over. What do you want, Dad?" "To welcome you back to reality. To discuss your future now that you've gotten this phase out of your system." "My future?" "Scarlett's been very patient, very understanding about your temporary lapse in judgment. She's willing to overlook the whole embarrassing episode if you're ready to move forward like a mature adult." Ethan looked at his father, really looked at him, and saw clearly for perhaps the first time. The cold calculation, the complete absence of genuine concern for his happiness, the assumption that love was something to be gotten out of one's system like a childhood illness. "Get out," he said quietly. "Excuse me?" "Get out of my office. Get out of my hospital. Get out of my life." Harold's face darkened. "Don't be ridiculous, Ethan. You need me. I don't need anyone who thinks my marriage was an embarrassing episode to be overlooked. I don't need anyone who sees the woman I love as a temporary lapse in judgment." "The woman you love?" Harold laughed coldly. "She left you, didn't she? Ran back to whatever hovel she came from the moment things got difficult. That's what people like her do. They take what they can get and disappear when it's convenient." "People like her don't exist," Ethan said, standing up. "There is no one like Cassie. She didn't leave because things got difficult. She left because she thought she was protecting me. Because she's selfless enough to sacrifice her own happiness if she believes it's best for someone she cares about." How noble. How utterly pointless. You're right. It is pointless. Because I would rather have a life with her that disappoints you than a life without her that meets your approval. Harold studied his son's face, and for the first time in years seemed to realize he was looking at a stranger. "If you choose her over your family, over your legacy, then I choose her. Every time, without question, forever. I'll disinherit you. Then disinherit me. I'll build my own practice, make my own way. I'd rather be poor with Cassie than rich without her." After Harold left, Ethan sat alone in his office, staring out the window at the city where Cassie was somewhere living her life without him. For the first time since she'd left, he felt something other than despair. He felt purpose. Finding Cassie wasn't difficult. She'd moved back to her old apartment, picked up her shifts at Murphy's Diner, fallen back into the exhausting routine of working multiple jobs to survive. What was difficult was working up the courage to face her. Ethan sat in his car outside the diner for an hour, watching her through the window as she moved between tables with the same efficient grace he remembered. She looked tired, more tired than when he'd first met her, but she was smiling at customers, laughing at something a regular patron said, being her irrepressibly warm self despite everything. When her shift ended, he followed her to the bus stop, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Cassie." She turned, and for a moment, her face lit up with joy before shuddering back into careful neutrality. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk." "We said everything we needed to say." "You said everything you needed to say. I never got a chance to respond." The bus wheezed to a stop in front of them, its doors opening with a mechanical sigh. Cassie looked between Ethan and the bus, conflict clear on her face. "Please," he said quietly. "Just give me 10 minutes." She didn't get on the bus. They walked to the same park where this had all begun, sitting on a bench under the dying light of late afternoon. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. "How's Tommy?" Ethan asked finally. "Good. He got into the marine biology program at the state university, full scholarship." "That's wonderful. He must be thrilled." "He is. He wanted me to thank you for the recommendation letter you sent to the admissions committee." Ethan looked surprised. "How did you know about that?" "The admissions officer mentioned it when she called with the good news. Apparently a letter from Dr. Ethan Sterling carries significant weight in academic circles. Tommy earned that scholarship on his own merit." "Maybe, but your name opened the door." Cassie looked at him directly for the first time. "Why did you do that? After I left?" "Because I love you. And people who love each other take care of the people who matter to their loved ones. Don't what? Don't say you love me. It doesn't change anything. It changes everything." "No, Ethan, it doesn't." Cassie's voice grew stronger, more determined. "I've had a month to think about this, to get some perspective. What we had, it wasn't real. It was gratitude and proximity and two lonely people convincing themselves that dependency was love. That's not true, isn't it? You married me to spite your father. I agreed because I needed the money. Everything that happened after that was just us trying to make the best of a business arrangement. And the nights we spent talking until dawn, the way you laughed when I burned dinner trying to impress you, the way you held my hand during that documentary about ocean conservation because you knew I was thinking about Sarah." Cassie's composure cracked slightly. "That was friendship. Was it friendship when you kissed me awake that morning when I fell asleep on the couch? When you told me about your parents' accident and cried in my arms? When you said you'd never felt safer anywhere than you did in our bed? We didn't sleep together? No. But you slept in my arms more nights than not, and don't tell me that was just convenience." Tears were streaming down Cassie's face now. "It doesn't matter what it was. It's over." "Why, because some people we don't even like disapproved? Because my father threw a tantrum? Because Scarlett Blackwood tried to manipulate you into leaving? Because I don't belong in your world? Then I'll leave my world." The words hung between them like a declaration of war. "What?" Cassie whispered. "I quit Sterling Medical Group. I'm opening my own practice, a clinic in Lawrenceville, focused on providing cardiac care to underserved populations. No insurance required, sliding scale payments, the kind of medicine I should have been practicing all along." "Ethan, no. You can't give up everything for me. I'm not giving up everything. I'm giving up everything that doesn't matter to get back the only thing that does. Your family. Disowned me the moment I told my father I'd choose you over their approval every time. Apparently, loving someone more than the Sterling reputation is grounds for disinheritance. Your career will be exactly what I want it to be for the first time in my life. Medicine that matters, patients who need me, work that actually makes a difference instead of just maintaining status." Cassie stared at him, her face cycling through shock, disbelief, and something that might have been hope. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Ethan moved closer on the bench. "Cassie, I spent 30 years living the life my father planned for me, becoming the man he wanted me to be. And I was miserable, successful, respected, and completely empty inside. Until I met a waitress who worked 3 jobs and still found energy to care about a stranger's problems. Until I married someone who saw through all my pretenses and loved me anyway. Until I lived with a woman who made my sterile apartment feel like home just by being in it." "Ethan, I love you," he said fiercely. "Not because you need rescuing, not because you're convenient, not because you helped me rebel against my father. I love you because you're brave and kind and real in a world full of people who are none of those things. I love you because you make me want to be better than I am. But the differences between us are exactly what make us perfect for each other. You keep me grounded. I help you dream bigger. You show me what really matters, I give you the resources to fight for it. We balance each other, Cassie. We make each other whole. Cassie was sobbing now, her careful composure completely destroyed. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of believing this is real. Of letting myself think we could actually work. Of trusting that you won't wake up one day and realize you've made a terrible mistake. Ethan reached for her hands, and this time, she didn't pull away. Look at me, he said gently. She raised her tear-streaked face to his. I woke up every morning for a month knowing I'd made a terrible mistake, and it wasn't marrying you. It was letting you walk away without fighting for us. The people in your world will never accept me. Then we'll find new people, better people. The kind of people who judge character instead of bank accounts. Your parents made their choice, just like we're making ours. Cassie searched his face, looking for doubt, for signs that this was temporary insanity that would fade with time. What if it's not enough? She asked quietly. What if love isn't enough to overcome everything else? Then we'll fail together. But at least we'll fail at something real instead of succeeding at something empty. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the weight of the decision hanging between them. I missed you, Cassie admitted finally. I missed you too. Every single day. I kept your coffee mug. I don't even drink coffee, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I couldn't sleep in our bed. I've been living on the couch for a month because everything in that room smelled like you. Despite everything, Cassie smiled. We're pathetic. We're in love. Sometimes it's the same thing. So what happens now? Now you come home with me and we figure out how to build a life together. A real life this time, not an arrangement. And if it doesn't work, then at least we'll know we tried. But Cassie, Ethan cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away her tears. I don't think we're going to fail. I think we're going to be extraordinary together. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't regret this, that you won't wake up in 5 years and wish you'd chosen the safe path. I can't promise that, Ethan said honestly. Cassie's face fell. Because I already know, he continued. I've lived the safe path, Cassie. I spent 30 years being who I was supposed to be, doing what was expected of me, making all the right choices. And I was dying inside, one perfectly appropriate day at a time. And now? Now I'm awake, terrified, uncertain, completely outside my comfort zone, but awake. And I would rather spend 1 year truly alive with you than 50 years sleepwalking without you. Cassie looked into his eyes and saw her own future reflected back. Uncertain, unconventional, but absolutely real. Okay, she whispered. Okay, let's go home. The Lawrenceville Community Cardiac Clinic occupied a converted warehouse between a laundromat and a grocery store that had seen better decades. The waiting room furniture was donated, the paint was 2 years past needing a refresh, and the air conditioning worked only when it felt like it. It was also the most important work Ethan had ever done. Dr. Sterling? Maria Santos, the clinic's volunteer coordinator, poked her head into his office. Mrs. Rodriguez is here with her granddaughter, the little girl you operated on last month. Send them back. 8-year-old Sofia Rodriguez bounded into the office, her grandmother trailing behind with tears in her eyes. The child who had been pale and listless 6 weeks ago was now pink-cheeked and energetic, her surgical scar hidden beneath a t-shirt decorated with cartoon dolphins. Dr. Sterling, look what I can do! Sophia proceeded to demonstrate a series of jumping jacks that would have been impossible before her heart surgery. That's wonderful, Sophia. How do you feel? Like I can run forever. Abuela says I have to be careful, but I feel strong like a superhero. Mrs. Rodriguez wiped her eyes. Doctor, we can never thank you enough. The other doctors, they said the surgery would cost more than our house. They said to take her home and keep her comfortable. Every child deserves a chance at a healthy life, Mrs. Rodriguez. No exceptions. After they left, Ethan sat in his cramped office, surrounded by thank you cards and children's drawings, and felt something he'd never experienced in the pristine halls of Sterling Medical Group. Complete professional satisfaction. Busy day? Cassie appeared in his doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the diner down the street. The best kind of busy. She settled into the chair across from his desk, and Ethan marveled again at how right this felt. 6 months of marriage, real marriage this time, and he still felt that flutter of happiness whenever she walked into a room. "How was your day?" he asked. "Good. I got my GED results. Passed with honors." "Cassie, that's incredible." Ethan jumped up to hug her, spinning her around his tiny office. "I'm so proud of you. It's just a high school equivalency test. It's the first step toward everything you want to achieve. Have you thought more about college?" "Actually, yes." Cassie pulled a brochure from her purse. "The community college has a nursing program. 2 years, mostly evening classes, so I can keep working here part-time." "Here." Maria offered me the position of patient advocate, helping families navigate insurance, connecting them with resources, making sure people don't fall through the cracks. Ethan felt his chest swell with pride. "You'd be perfect for that." "I hope so. I want to help people the way you helped me. The way we helped each other." That evening, they walked home together through their neighborhood, not the sterile perfection of Ethan's former penthouse district, but the lived-in reality of working-class Pittsburgh. They'd bought a small house 3 blocks from the clinic, nothing fancy but warm and welcoming, with a garden where Cassie was attempting to grow tomatoes, and a front porch where they sat most evenings, watching the world go by. "Any regrets?" Cassie asked as they settled onto their porch swing. "About what?" "Giving up your trust fund, losing your family's approval, trading a penthouse for a 3-bedroom ranch house." Ethan considered the question seriously. "Ask me in 20 years. I'm asking you now." "Now?" He pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair. "Now I regret that it took me 30 years to realize that the life I thought I wanted was killing me slowly. And this life. This life is messy and uncertain and completely outside my comfort zone." He kissed the top of her head. "It's also the only life I've ever lived that feels like it belongs to me. Even when Mrs. Patterson brings us casseroles, we're too polite to refuse even though her cooking is terrible. Especially then. Even when the clinic's budget is so tight we're literally counting pennies. Even then. Even when your mother calls every few months to tell you what a disappointment you are. Even then. Though I have to admit, I'm grateful those calls are getting less frequent." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their neighbors tend their own small gardens, hearing the sounds of family dinners and evening routines through open windows. "Tommy called today," Cassie said eventually. "How's college treating him?" "He loves it. His marine biology professor wants him to apply for a research position next summer. Paid research. That's fantastic. He also has a girlfriend, Jessica. She's studying environmental science." "Serious?" "Serious enough that he's bringing her home for Thanksgiving to meet us." "Us." The word still gave Ethan a small thrill of belonging. "Should I be prepared to do the intimidating big brother thing?" "You? Intimidating?" Cassie laughed. "You cried during that documentary about sea turtle conservation. Those baby turtles were very moving. You're about as intimidating as a golden retriever. Hey, golden retrievers can be fierce when protecting their families." "True." Cassie settled more comfortably against his side. "Speaking of family." Something in her tone made Ethan look down at her. "What about family?" Cassie reached into her pocket and pulled out a small white stick, holding it up so he could see the 2 pink lines. For a moment, Ethan's brain couldn't process what he was seeing. Then understanding hit like a lightning bolt. We're going to have a baby." Ethan stared at the pregnancy test, then at Cassie's face, then back at the test, his heart racing. "How do you feel about that?" Cassie asked, suddenly nervous. "I know we haven't talked about children specifically, and the clinic is still getting established, and money's tight." Ethan silenced her with a kiss that tasted like joy and promises and the future they were building together. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you, and I love our baby, and I love the life we're creating. Even though it's going to make everything more complicated, especially because of that." Ethan placed his hand gently over her still flat stomach. "This baby is going to grow up knowing they were wanted, planned for, celebrated from the moment we knew they existed. They're going to grow up in a house full of love instead of expectations. And medical journals, lots of medical journals, and coffee stains on the furniture because their mother insists on bringing me coffee even though I've told her 1,000 times she doesn't have to take care of me. And terrible homemade dinners because their father still can't cook anything more complicated than scrambled eggs. And neighbors who bring casseroles we can't refuse. And a clinic where their parents work together to help other families. And a garden where their mother grows the world's most ambitious tomatoes. They sat together on their front porch, hands intertwined, watching the sun set over their imperfect, complicated, absolutely perfect life. The second annual Lawrenceville Community Health Fair was in full swing, with families lined up for free screenings, health education booths, and face painting for the children. Dr. Ethan Sterling moved through the crowd, checking blood pressures and answering questions, while Cassie Sterling coordinated volunteers and translated for Spanish-speaking families. "Mama!" 18-month-old Grace Sterling toddled across the community center floor, her chubby arms reaching for Cassie. "There's my girl." Cassie scooped up their daughter, who had Ethan's gray eyes and Cassie's determined chin. "Were you good for Aunt Maria?" "She was an angel," Maria Santos called from the children's area, "though she did try to reorganize my entire filing system." "She gets that from her father," Cassie said, earning a mock-offended look from Ethan. "I don't reorganize filing systems. No, you just alphabetize the spice rack and color coordinate the medical journals. Organization is a virtue. Control freak is more accurate." They bantered like this constantly now, the easy back and forth of a couple who knew each other's quirks and loved each other anyway. Grace babbled happily between them, switching between Mama and Dada, and what sounded suspiciously like stethoscope. "Dr. Sterling?" A teenage boy approached hesitantly. "My mom wanted me to thank you. For the surgery last year, I'm Marcus Williams." Ethan's face lit up with recognition. "Marcus, how are you feeling?" "Great, amazing. I made varsity soccer this year." "That's wonderful. Your mom must be proud." "She is. She also wanted me to give you this." Marcus handed over an envelope. "She said to tell you it's not much, but she wanted to contribute something to the clinic." After Marcus left, Ethan opened the envelope to find a handwritten note and a $20 bill. "Dr. Sterling," the note read, "this is all I can afford right now, but I wanted to help other families the way you helped mine. Thank you for giving my son his life back. Linda Williams." Cassie read over his shoulder, both of them blinking back tears. "Not bad for a day's work," she said softly. "Not bad at all." As the health fair wound down, they packed up their supplies and headed home, Grace falling asleep in her stroller. Their house was exactly as they'd left it, comfortable chaos, medical journals mixed with parenting books, toys scattered across the living room floor. "Bath time for someone," Cassie said, lifting their drowsy daughter. "I'll get dinner started," Ethan replied. "Please tell me you're not attempting to cook again." "I bought ingredients for that pasta dish you like. I'm going to follow the recipe exactly." Famous last words. An hour later, they sat around their kitchen table, sharing takeout Chinese food, because Ethan's cooking attempt had ended predictably. "So," Cassie said, twirling lo mein around her fork, "I have news." "Good news or, we need to discuss this news?" "Good news. The community college accepted my application for the RN program. I start classes in the fall. Cassie, that's incredible. It means longer hours, more time away from home. It means you're going to become the nurse you always wanted to be. We'll figure out the logistics. Grace banged her sippy cup on her high chair tray, demanding attention. What do you think, Gracie? Ethan asked. Should Mama become a nurse? Mama, Grace declared, as if that settled everything. I think that's a yes, Cassie laughed. Later that evening, after Grace was asleep in her crib, Ethan found Cassie on their front porch, staring up at the stars. Penny for your thoughts? Just thinking about how different everything is from 2 years ago. Better different? Definitely better different. Cassie leaned against his shoulder. Sometimes I can't believe this is really my life. That I get to be married to someone who thinks my dreams matter. That I get to raise a daughter who will grow up knowing she can be anything she wants to be. She gets that confidence from her mother. She gets her stubbornness from both of us. Poor kid doesn't stand a chance. They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their neighborhood settling in for the night. Ethan? Thank you. For what? For seeing me, for fighting for us, for building this life with me. Thank you for letting me, even when I was being stupid and self-sacrificing. Especially then, though let's not make a habit of it. Deal. As they headed inside, Cassie caught sight of their reflection in the front window. A young family, tired but happy, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived. Not the life either of them had planned, but somehow exactly the life they were meant to have. I love you, Dr. Sterling, she whispered. I love you too, Mrs. Sterling, forever and always. And in their small house in their working-class neighborhood, with their sleeping daughter upstairs and their shared dreams spread out before them, they had everything they'd never known they wanted, and more than they'd ever dared to hope for. Sometimes the best love stories aren't about finding your perfect match, but about finding someone worth becoming your best self for. What did you think of Ethan and Cassie's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will make you believe in love again.